Hey there, this is the last part of my three-part series titled 30 Lessons I Learned Before Turning 30. If you haven't checked the first two parts, I recommend you do it since they include the first 20 lessons. In any case, the list is in no particular order, so you can check them later if you wish. And next to each lesson, I will add a small commentary for context and further explanation. So without further ado, here's the last part of the list with lessons 21 to 30. Lesson 21 is direct experience is king. No amount of theory will surpass your direct experience. And I mentioned the importance of direct experience throughout my videos and also in the previous parts. If you cannot verify some idea by yourself, in particular all the principles, all the lessons I'm talking here, then throw them away, at least for now. Of course, every method of principle you try, you should be done at least for a couple of weeks or months before making a final decision. And I have also a lot of experience regarding this point because I used to, and I still to some point, to be a self-improvement junkie. That means I consume a lot of personal development content, books, podcasts, YouTube videos, and so on. And whether walking, eating, or at the gym, I always had some content to consume. But at some point, maybe you also had experience that soon it becomes too much to absorb and embody. It's too much content. I mean, if you have a couple of hours, even a couple of hours every day, it becomes quite a lot over time. And the end result is that those ideas become beliefs. And this is a very dangerous point because you may think you know the concepts and even talk about them with others, but this is just mental masturbation. So be very careful of that. And the main point is that consuming content is the first and easy step for personal growth. I mean, in a sense, it's necessary. You need the theory and not neglecting that. You need to consume content, you need to learn new ideas. But doing the practices and living the ideas in your daily life, that's where the challenge starts and where most people stops. So we must give our minds also some time to process all this information, and I think for that, journaling or contemplating, I mentioned contemplation in the previous video, you can check it out, can be a great tool that aid in this process of really reshaping your mind. Lesson number 22 is the importance of philosophy, and I know this won't apply to most of you, but if you are intellectually minded or inclined, then go on. And to be honest, I disregard philosophy most of my life. I didn't know what it was about. Besides, impossible to understand jargon and mental masturbation. That was for me philosophy. And school didn't help either. The 2 years I had philosophy and school was about reading boring texts and discussing boring bullshit. Really, I didn't like it at all. And at least that was my point of view back then. Maybe I was just dumb. Who knows? This lesson came after years of self-improvement and trying to distill the ideas into more general principles. Because, I mean, if you do some personal development, self-improvement, you realize that a lot of those ideas are based on philosophical principles laid down hundreds of years ago. So over time, I became interested in those esoteric ideas instead of the more mundane stuff, which is still important and still I consume it and I try to actualize. So now I'm not encouraging you to become an academic or professional philosopher. Instead, I want you to become a better thinker and inquire about the nature of your life and reality, if you want to. So to come up with your own answers and see for that point 17 in the previous video. And it's not about spending hundreds of hours reading Kant or Nietzsche or your favorite philosopher. Rather, it's about spending the same amount of time contemplating questions you consider important. It's about embodying the lessons you learn and grounding your conclusions in your direct experience and not speculation nor beliefs. So it's a personal quest for truth. That's for me what philosophy really is. The point number 23 is that reality is not black or white. And this is very important, especially in this age of polarization. this principle is important as ever. So politics is one of the most prominent examples. No, so things are not right always left or right, but it can be a combination of both to different degrees. And if you are a left winger, not all the right wingers' ideas are bullshit, and vice versa. But the problem is that in this cancel and group thinking culture, we seem we have lost the capacity to appreciate other people's idea, even if we don't agree on everything, especially when we don't agree on everything. And this has been exacerbated by social media, sadly, whose algorithms show you only what you want to see. So in a sense, we'd end up in different bubbles, totally disconnected from the other bubbles, and we cannot communicate at some point. And yeah, as humans, we like simple answers, we like black and white answers. We don't want to complicate our existence too much, but reality is way more complicated and very non-linear and counterintuitive. And this black and white approach can serve as a first step to have like a first idea. But if we want to go to the core of any issue, the answer will come up in a shade of grades instead, not black and white. It will be a mixture, will be way more complex. And that's why it's important to listen to contrasting opinions on different topics and make our best effort to not fall into a particular bubble, to really try to communicate with all bubbles. And otherwise we become unable to see other people's point of view, and for that I recommend remember point 12 in the previous episode. And soon everyone who doesn't think like us is labeled as stupid and limiting any opportunity to learn and understand. We really close ourselves to different perspectives, and that's very limiting. Point number 24 is how much do beliefs shape our reality, and that's extremely important, a crucial point, a lesson that had changed my life, because the thing is that we love to know and we hate to not know. We will rather believe any nonsense rather than be okay with not knowing. And that's why all religions are so popular. They were so popular, are still popular, right? We would rather cling to a belief rather than try to figure out the reality by ourselves. But, however, our beliefs are not limited to religious affairs, quite the contrary. Most of our worldviews is shaped by different beliefs about the world, about ourselves, about others. And in a sense, we need them for our survival. Otherwise, we'll have to try every scientific experiment by yourself, which is quite impractical, right? So the problem is not beliefs alone, if you know they are construction of your mind. Instead, most of us take our beliefs too seriously, and so much that we confuse them with true knowledge. And that's where belief becomes too dangerous, because they limit our sense of reality and hinder our growth. Literally, we get trapped by this web of beliefs. And beliefs are so important that I made a special video about the mechanics of belief, and how to identify and remove those that are not serving you anymore, because chances are you have hundreds of beliefs about the world, about yourself, and you may not even aware of them. And as I mentioned in my previous video, fears are based on beliefs. So there's a very deep connection between beliefs and fear. So you really need to understand them. So I recommend you check out this video when I go in depth about the topic of beliefs. Lesson number 25 is life is a video game. And I like this one. I spent thousands of hours playing video games since I was a kid. And my favorite genre was or is strategy games. I really love that shit and still do it, but I don't play anymore because it robbed me of energy and this strategic thinking. I could have applied this strategic thinking to my life instead. So on the other hand, when we spend time playing video games, our life seems dull and unappealing. Because the world, this virtual world we are playing is way more exciting, way more interesting. In a sense, we become dependent and want to escape our mediocre life. And sadly, a lot of people have this video game addiction or dependence, which is a problem. And instead, what if you become the avatar of this game called life, this virtual reality we're living in? which is it's pretty cool, no? Of course, yeah. At first, yeah, will suck at first because you will start level 0 or maybe level 1 if you're lucky. But that's where the progress is the easiest. After all, you are starting at ground zero. So if you love strategy games like me, why don't you use all this mental power to improve your life? I think that's a very simple but it's quite powerful principle to really focus your energies towards improving yourself and see life as a game with rewards, with punishments. But you know, it's quite fun. Yeah, after a while. I mean, as I mentioned, at first will be quite dull because yeah, I mean, the life from the video games is pretty cool, but you will start to appreciate your life quite more if you start to take life more as a game. Also, you don't take it too seriously because also games have these connotations. When you play a video game, you don't take it too seriously. I mean, sometimes you do, but most of the time you focus on enjoying and having a good time. So the same applies to life. And personally, I still have fond memories of my time playing video games, especially the Mass Effect saga will always have a place in my heart. And some people, yeah, can play games without getting obsessed, but I have a hard time with that. And I know many guys struggle with video game addictions. So personally, until I don't have my shit together, then I think it's a safe idea to stay away from them and instead trying to improve this avatar. Lesson 26 is every perspective has some degree of truth, even the ones you may disagree with. And this is related to point 23 about reality being is not black and white. And I think it's a serious mistake to ignore other people's opinion just because we may disagree on some aspect. For example, I may not share the same political views of someone, but this doesn't allow me to appreciate their philosophy. And personally, I love connecting the dots from many different points of view. And such, I need to collect lots of data from different schools of thought and my ideas to develop this unique perspective about the world to create my reality. You know? And after all, our perspectives are severely limited by our culture and life story, by our family, whatever. And as a consequence, we'll always produce limit ideas and limit views. So I try sporadically to read or listen to people with ideas I may consider crazy or completely wrong, nonsensical. And I know that understanding their perspective can help me understand why they're coming up with such ideas in the first place. And also it helps me to collect information I may be missing to get the whole picture. Of course, I may not agree fully with them, but still I may learn something. I think that's the main point I want to make from this lesson. And as I mentioned, it doesn't mean I have to agree with them, but at least I should be open to the possibility of changing my mind 180 degrees and be okay with that, be flexible with that, be open-minded with that. So yeah, that's in a nutshell this lesson 26. Lesson 27 is every change occurs when it has to occur. In other words, don't try too hard to change something if it doesn't come naturally. Sometimes it's just not the right time. In a sense, life gives us many opportunities to change course in our direction. And I can think of many times when I tried to remove some bad habit of my life when I wasn't ready to do it. And sometimes we don't want to change, but someone else tells us to do it in a very subtle way, like a friend, family member, or your favorite YouTuber may recommend to do this or do that. And you may ask, when do I know when I'm ready, right? I mean, if you are telling me that not every time you should change something, how do I know that? And for me, there is a clear, irrevocable conviction to change whatever I want to do. There is zero doubt. This doesn't mean the change will be effortless or painless. No, some self-discipline certainly will be helpful to go through, especially the first phase, which typically sucks. Like for example, I quit coffee like a couple of weeks ago. I've been through this process, and yeah, at first sucks, but somehow I have the conviction that I want to do it, and it happens. You don't really have to fight too hard. And in any case, if you fail, don't beat yourself too much, and gather the lessons you can use the next time to come up with the same challenge, because as I mentioned, sooner or later it will come again, and you must be prepared for it. Point number 28 is failure is not optional but necessary. And I already mentioned failure in a couple of points throughout this series, and for some reasons we are terrified of failing. Personally, I always dread it. And I was a good student at school, for example, and my identity was tied to be a good student. And as a consequence, I always did my best to get a good grade. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but it creates a lot of pressure. And I remember reading the assigned books for school several times to the point of memorizing the whole thing, just to really don't miss anything. And that's quite silly, because I mean, it was a lot of time I had to spend reading the books several times. And I think that the school system has a big responsibility in our fear of failing. Of course, I'm not saying that's a conspiracy theory, but somehow the system is made that we get afraid of failing, because after all, failing means a bad grade in school, which means either our parents will be disappointed, or later we won't have good enough grades to get into university, for example, especially if you are into a competitive career that requires you like good grades. And in real life, though, there is no answer key, and so many times we have to figure out the solution by ourselves, and as such we will have to make many mistakes. And if you fear failing, you will get stuck in whatever situation you are right now, right, without a chance to improve your current situation. And of course, we can take shortcuts by learning from other people's mistakes. Like, that's why books and content can be very useful to learn from other people's mistakes. But there are situations where theoretical knowledge won't be enough. Remember point 21, the first one from this part, and we must go through the challenge ourselves. And since I think that failure is such an important topic, I made a special a special video about failure. So I think it's a crucial lesson to embody to reach our full potential. Otherwise, we will all get stuck into wherever we are, because we will be afraid of going beyond, and that's a huge limiting factor in our growth. Point 29 is don't care much about what others may think of you, and that's very important. I used to care too much about other people's opinion, and I don't know why, but I took things very personally. And remember point 10 from part 1 of this series. And as a result, I avoid confrontation and expressing my views at all costs. I don't know, maybe it was a self-esteem issue, I don't know really, but I thinking deeply about it, I realized that it all boils down again to fear. And I mentioned fear in the previous part of this series. So I was afraid of saying something silly, or that my image was ruined. Now it seems foolish to me, but back then I took it very seriously. And other people have their own agendas and biases, so they will project those onto you. This doesn't mean that we'll dismiss their opinions completely. We will take them as data, and we may use them to make our decisions in life. But ultimately, we are the architects of our life. Remember point 6 in the first part of this series. So it's up to us to make the best of our lives. And the last point is regarding this principle is that don't confuse this with being close-minded, stubborn, or with being an asshole. I think there's a fine line between those three concepts, and don't care too much about what others may think of you. But this is especially useful if you take things too personally, and because it will limit also your life. You won't be able to reach your full potential. Point number 30, and the last one in this 3-part series about 30 lessons I learned before turning 30, is I still have a lot of lessons to learn. and the more I learn, the more I need to know. In a sense, I feel like this journey is just starting. I feel like really I'm just starting this personal development journey, which is pretty exciting, even though I've been doing it for 10 years, but it seems that the first part was just like a warm-up. And now I really start to do a more real personal development and growing significantly faster and more. And of course, don't have the impression that I mastered the previous 29 lessons or that I know everything. I'm far from it. We're all trying here to grow in some way or another. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this 3-part series, I want to use this exercise of coming out with these 30 lessons as an opportunity for reflection and to gather some lessons that could be useful to you. And of course, some of them won't make sense to you. That's fine. There is no problem with that. Take anything that you might find of value and just leave the rest. You don't need to really, there's a lot of information, that's a lot of principles. And I will go into detail. I already went into detail in some of them. I already mentioned them, but I will probably could do 30 videos about each one of those principles and make a long format video, because there is so much I can mention for each one of those points if I don't want to make it too long. So probably I will go into more depth into the future. So there is a lot of cool stuff coming. And I'm pretty sure my present self will look quite stupid compared to my, 35-year-old self. But that's the idea of the game, to be in constant evolution. And new lessons unlock new challenge. And failures give us the feedback on how to do things better in the future. And the important thing is to not stop. That's the most important thing. It's very easy to get caught into petty problems, in drama that makes us stuck in life and waste years or months. And as soon as we move, we get closer to the goal. That's the important thing, to move, to not stop, and not to take it too seriously. In a sense, take it seriously in the sense that you don't want to slack too much, but also don't take it too seriously to the point that you become like an asshole, or you are like a self-improvement junkie, thinking all the time about this. Also learn to enjoy life, to live life, and to have fun. And that's all for this 3-part series. I really enjoy doing that. I think that I learn a lot to also come up with those principles, and I hope that you also can learn a thing of two. And if you liked this 3-part series and this video, leave a like and subscribe to not miss future content. And I want to ask you which lessons you like the most, and leave a comment. I'm curious about that. And lastly, no matter your age, you don't have to be under 30 to watch this, doesn't matter. It's never too late to change your life radically. You can always start today. And I'm here so that we can do this together. I also walk in this personal development path. I'm just starting, so I'm really looking forward to to get to know some of you and to walk this path together, because at points it's quite challenging, it's emotionally difficult, and I think that doing alone is quite hard. So why don't do it together? And that's all for today, and see you in the next episode.